All right, we're going.
Okay, very good. Well, we are starting today on slide number 94 on my tutorial from on my homepage of the right-hand column. And we have finished other calendars, and tonight we're starting the Hebrew calendar. It is quite a bit more complicated than our simple Gregorian calendar, just tries to keep track of the year, the one we use all the time. You might have little pictures of the moon drawn on the days of your wall calendar to tell you the phase of the moon, but it's not part of the calendar. That's not required in the calendar. We do have a week on our regular calendar, but it's just superimposed. It's not really part of the calendar. That goes back to, we talked about that, but Constantine is the one that put the week into the Julian calendar. It was not there before. The Julian calendar. Anyway, this one has more wheels. The Hebrew calendar not only keeps track of the year, of the solar year, in other words, spring to spring seasons, but it also keeps track of the week. The way it does that is the year can only begin on the odd numbered days, on Sunday, day number one, or Tuesday, day three, or Thursday, day five, or Saturday, day seven. And it starts in the spring. We'll talk about that. So the first day of Nisan can only happen on 4 days of the week. And so that's how it aligns with the week. It's not a strong aligning, but it's within a couple of days of whatever else you're lining up with. The big new thing that makes it much more difficult is the moon. The Hebrew calendar is set up. The moon has phases. And if you look at the length, I have it printed there, 29.53 days, but for lunar phases to go from new moon to new moon. That's almost 29 and a half, and we'll see how that plays in a minute. But the Hebrew calendar is going to try to line up all three of those with the day so that it comes out an exact. You want any calendar to come out in an exact number of days. I think we did that on slide 2. You don't want, like, the year is about 365 and a quarter days, but you don't want the year to start at midnight one year and at 6 a.m. the next year and at noon the next year. I mean, you want a whole number of days. So that's in the pulleys too. This is complicated enough that if you look up in an encyclopedia, it's the history of our calendar. They all say it's impossible. They say to line up all of these and look at it as a huge achievement to have the Gregorian calendar, which just ignores the month entirely and the week actually, and just works on getting the number of days right. It's interesting, but the Lord uses this one uh, as one of his principal calendars, the Hebrew calendar, and here is how they do it. Let's go to the next slide. 95. The way it's done is the Hebrew months begin at a new moon. And then you have different ways to determine a new moon. I told you at the beginning on all of these calendars, you can have an observational version where you actually go out and try to see either the end of the old cycle of the moon, where it's the skinny fingernail of God, as my mom used to call it, uh, in the morning before it sets, or the skinny crescent in the evening just after sunset. It could be done either way. The way it's done on all of the calendars I'm looking at is you don't ever actually have to go look at the moon. Astronomers do that, and they figure out a way that they can print the calendar months or years ahead and they don't need weather. You don't need to observe it. You've already calculated it, and unless something crazy like the earth reeling to and fro like a drunken man happens, then it's very regular, and that calendar will be pretty close to correct. And we've already seen that, yeah, it's slide 95 now, there you go. We've already seen that just starting on the day of the week, it's already going to be a day or so off. So anyway, here's how they try to line up all of them. First of all, since a lunar month is about 29.5 days, they have what's called a common year that just alternates 30 days and 29-day months. Technically, the year starts in the spring with Nisan, but for a lot of purposes, it starts in the fall. And if you ask Hebrews, they'll always say it starts in the fall. And they have the first day of Tishri in the fall is the Feast of Trumpets, and that's considered the first day of the year for a lot of purposes, Rosh Hashanah. But technically, really, it starts in the spring, and Moses was told that, and that's how all of these calendars work. But they have different ways. So there's also sort of a new year in the summer and in the winter, so it's all in quarters. Anyway, you have these alternating months. I have the names there. Those are mostly Babylonian names. There's only 4 names from the Bible that are preserved from the pre-Babylonian days. And anyway, everybody uses the Babylonian names now. They were in 70 years in Babylon. And that's time enough to lose a lot of traditions and pick up Babylon. Nevertheless, they're good enough names and they worked, and that's what we have. So let's go to the next slide. Well, I'll say I have the 4 seasons. You don't need to learn the names all right now, but just know that there's 12 months in the year, but they only average 29 and a half days. Let's go to slide number 96 now. If you multiply out 12 months times 29 and a half, it comes out to 354 days. That's 11 days short of a solar year. See, most of our months on our solar year, they have 30 or 31. We got one shorty with 28, but the real average should be between 30 and 31. So this is 11 days short of a solar year. So now what are you going to do? That's why the problem gets hard. Well, that's about, let's just do the 3 first. That's about, in 3 years, should be 33 days short, right? And so 33 days is about a month. So about every 3 years, you insert a whole extra month. And in this picture, you see it sort of inserted at the top. You see all the 12 months going around the outside, and Adar is the last month in the spring. And Veadar, Ve means 2, basically. It's second Adar. So in about 1 month out of 1 year out of 3, they put in a whole extra month, a 13th month. And that comes out pretty close. And then someone discovered what's called the Metonic cycle. They named it after Meton, who's in Greek about 600 BC. But it's been known long before that. But anyway, it comes out, instead of 6 out of 18 years, which would be 1 in 3, it's 7 out of 19 years. So if you have a 19-year cycle and put in 7 leap years, and so that's interesting. You get 7 and 12 out of this. 7 leap years and 12 what's called common years. There's 7 and 12 magic numbers. That adds up to a 19-year cycle. And that comes out so accurate that that's what the Jews have used forever. Forever meaning before AD 200, they mostly did the observational kind, where you would have people go out. Oh, I didn't say that, but you'd have people go out, trained and trusted observers, go out and look for the thin crescent moon after sunset. and to get people to do so. It was done observationally. And if that thin crescent moon was visible by 3 witnesses, then that was declared the first day of the month, having already started at the moment they saw it. In order to get people to do that, they held a big dinner. It had to be accepted as trustworthy, and I don't know exactly how that was done, elders or something. These are mostly men that are established. But anyway, they'd hold a dinner and a feast, and the first day of every month is holy. So if it was in fact the first month, they knew to have been a day. It'd either be a certain day that you'd see it or you wouldn't. And so it'd either have start that night or guaranteed the next night, because they knew it that closely. That was just for the close cases. Well, if you think about it, there's 2 real problems with that. One is you don't even know when your rent's due. You know, the Arab Islamic calendar is still done this way. And I taught at a university, and we tried to they required us to make special rules. On tests, we couldn't have them on, we couldn't even hardly schedule them because it might be Ramadan, their holy month, and they don't know when it's going to start. Anyway, we had to test around stuff like that. It's very nice to have a calculated calendar, which is what this calendar is I'm describing. It's called, I'll be describing a perpetual Hebrew calendar. And that way you know when your rent's due every day all through the year, whether it's cloudy or not. It's just nice to be able to calculate it. So the one way is observational, I described. The other way is through the calculation. And it turns out that metonic cycle is such that you can calculate that all through history, and that's what they've done. It turns out the number that they use for the length of the month is incredibly accurate. It's so accurate. I think it must have been given by revelation. Nobody could have, with the tools they had, nobody could have calculated that. It's amazing. It never gets off. But the length of the year, when you are guaranteed to put in 7 leap months every 19 years, that drifts by about a day every couple of 100 years, which means that the whole Hebrew calendar gets off. And right now, when you see when the official Passover is, it's supposed to be in the spring. It's supposed to be on the first. This was the way to know when to put in the extra month. That the Passover on the 15th day of the first month had to be on or after the spring equinox. Well, now, if you look at when it is, done by the calculation, which was figured out in AD 200 by Hillel II, was the head. Oh, I didn't say that. The other reason they needed to calculate it is they got all Jerusalem fell in AD 70, and the Jews ran all over the world, and now they all want to celebrate on the same day. Now, what are they going to do? Different time zones, different things, and do you have to go look at the moon yourself? That's when they came up with this calculated one, so that Jews all over the world would know when to celebrate, when was Passover. So that's actually, I thought, a step forward. But that's the good news about it. But the bad news is the model they've used gets off a day every couple 100 years, which means that now you'll see Passover not around the end of March, but way past the end of April, many days off, almost into May. It's almost into the summer. I saw that problem, and I'll share with you my problem. My problem is I had to find out what was true. What was God using? Is he using this calendar, or were they doing their best they could to figure it out? Does God's calendar only start the day on 4 days of the week? Every one of the rules on the Hebrew calendar, I had to verify whether it's right or not. Go to the next slide, number 97. Oh yeah, this tells you how many different kinds of years they have to make this all work. On the Gregorian calendar, we have 2 years. We have a common year and a leap year, 366 or 365 days. They need to get all of that to work 6 kind of years. 3 common years, which means they have 12 months, and 3 leap years, which means they have 13 months. And you don't need to memorize these names. I don't always remember them, but they're either deficient, regular, or complete, meaning they either have the average. I told you 354 was the average, and with a 30-day leap year, 384 is the average. But they can either, both of those years can either be 1 day short, deficient, or 1 day more complete. So you have to have these 6 years, and now you need a way to juggle them. The regular Hebrew calendar has a way to do that, but it's not elegant. It's hard, grinding, calculating. You need a computer. They were doing these calculations by hand. To know what the next year is, it was a lot of work. And I look at that, and partly I said, and partly I was inspired to say, wait a minute, the whole idea of a calendar is so you don't have to calculate and you don't have to go out and look at anything. The calendar is supposed to do that work for you. Go to number 98. And this took a lot of time, and this was back about late 1990s when this was done. I discovered, or it was discovered to me actually, that there's a recurring pattern that's amazing. And it allows a wheel to be made, a perpetual calendar wheel. This is something the Jews know nothing about. This is, to me, as far as I know, I don't have any evidence that this has ever been done before, except it's clear the Lord's using it. I call it the perpetual calendar. It's not perpetual in that you can just go around this forever, but this wheel, with some modifications, you can go around it forever. It's just not always continuous. So what this is, there in the center, you see the 4 days, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Those are the 4 days on which the year can start. Around the periphery, or the circumference of this circle, you see stuff like R Sunday 354, which is the first year of the cycle. That is an entire year. This wheel has 33 years in a row on it. And it's a circle because it's continuous. I told you how the moon comes out correctly. The moon comes out so correctly that you could go around an awful long time on this circle. And it would work for the month. That wouldn't work for the year. I told you it's about 1 year in 3, which is a leap year. And if you look, this is divided into what I call triplets. No, is it triplets? I changed the name at one point. Triads, I believe is what the word I ended up with, triads. Yeah, that's a better word. So this is 11 triads. And if you notice, each one starts on a common year, 354, ends on a common year, 355, but in the center is a leap year. So these triads have exactly 1 year in 3, which are leap years. We've already learned that's not going to work too well. You need 7 out of 19. Now in my tutorial, I don't believe I show how to use this, but I'll just tell you, you're signing up to get a little more than the tutorial. And so the way you use it is you can count off a certain number of triads plus 2. So either 5 years or 8 years or 11 years. And the most common is 11 and then 8. So you count, you do this year, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years. And that ends on a leap year, 11. And then you go to what would have been the next one, a blue Saturday that's 3:58, and you come over to here on a blue. The blue is to help you remember where the moon is. Blue is high, red is medium. High meaning a high longitude anyway, and red is medium and yellow is low. It's sort of like how high in the sky the moon is when you at sunset. Is it really high up or pretty low on the day it's a crescent? And there it is, a blue Saturday 3:53. So after you count around 11, you jump. You don't do this year. You jump over to here and count 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 11 plus 8 is 19. And if you count up the leap years, because you ended on a leap year, you'll find that you have 7 leap years. So there's a metonic cycle. But then you keep doing that. After you do the 8, then you jump to a new place and do 11 and jump to a new place and do 8. And you can do that for a long time. But again, if you do it more than 200 years, you'll be about a day off. So this has other rules that you don't do that forever. But you can see how with another small correction, this will work for a long, well, it'll work forever. So I'll save, if you have any questions on that, oh, guess what? It's, we're almost there. Let me just peek at the next slide. Let's just do this really quick. And then we'll stop on 99. There are 12 days designated by Moses for sacred rites or feasts, which are called major holy days on the perpetual calendar. Okay, somebody wrote in, we'll look at these now, but somebody wrote in and said, gee, what about the minor holy days? Well, when I was making this, I wasn't even sure what all of those were. I now am, and there's a slide up around, 400 that will list all of the minor holy days. And in my paper, a couple of months ago, when I go through what are the holy days on the star calendars, I have a comparison of the Hebrew and the Enoch compared to the star. I have a table that has all of the minor holy days on it. So that's an answer to a question if she happens to be listening to the replay of this. 7 of these 12 were given to Moses. In the law of Moses, they've celebrated 7. And by major holy day, I mean they're off work. They had a holy convocation. It's not only a day of, it's really a day of rest. It's not just let's fast to remember something. It's, it's a holy, it's like conference days or something. You have a holy convocation is what we call conference. One of them was not New Year's Day. I've added 5. I've made, there's reasons, but New Year's Day has been added by me to be a major holy day. 10th of Nisan is added by me as a major holy day. Passover, end of Passover.
I think Glenn needs to go to slide 99.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Slide 99, Glenn. There we go. Thank you. I'm looking at my own version. I should be looking at yours, so I'll watch that closer. Thank you. Okay, so there's the 12 holy days I've got. I'll just pick out the ones that Moses had. Passover was a big one. End of Passover is 2. First fruits is 3. Trumpets is 4. Atonements 5. Tabernacles 6. And end tabernacles, which is called the great day of the feast in the book of John. Those are the 7 original ones. The other ones I've added because they, like Easter. Easter has to be a major holy day. That's what Passover is looking forward to. They didn't know what it was. They offered. What I say at the top is true. Each of these had special offerings or special things done, but they weren't days off of work. But after the Easter was so important after the resurrection, they changed the holy day of the week so that every Sunday we worship on Easter instead of on Saturday. Anyway, and the others match the Enoch calendar better. So I propose that there's really 12 altogether that are major. And there's about 20 others. There's about 30 all year. There's about 20 others that are minor. And like I said, those are listed elsewhere. Okay, we're going to stop there. We'll start on number 100 next week. I've got one answer to a question from last week. I actually have, and then I have another little thing. Let's do the one from last week first, and then I'll ask you for questions, and then I have the other thing I'd like to add. So Gary is here, I see. Gary, the question, was it you that, whoever asked, you and I were going to look at it.
Yes. And I saw your answer in the paper. It was beautiful.
Oh, no cheating, no. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
I won't say anything.
No, don't go. No, Glenn, don't go to that yet. Well, you can leave it there. Leave it on Star Witnesses. There's a new paper out today, and the answer was impressive enough that I was, when I said no cheating, what I really meant was, did you look at it and did you come up with anything? That's what I meant.
Oh, yeah, I was working on it. I was about ready to send you something, but I didn't get as far as you did, obviously.
Well,
and that date wasn't even on my list, so.
Okay, I wasn't sure because it turned out, I said it the last week, I said that ought to be simple, and it really was. And the reason is.
Hey, John, you're going really soft on my end. I don't know if it's happened with anybody else.
I'm talking to my machine. Can everybody hear me okay?
It could just be my connection.
Okay. And I should look at the my chat box too. That's how, I guess, how people communicate. Anyway, Luke, I'll show you how it works, and it is in this paper. It turns out, Luke tells you. He says as soon as Gabriel did the Annunciation, that immediately after, and that's in June, mid-June, that immediately after Mary goes over to visit Elizabeth, and she stays there 3 months. That'd be July, August, and September, roughly, until Elizabeth was ready to deliver. Well, John the Baptist is born on October 6th. So the point is, Mary leaves just within probably about a week after the Annunciation. And by the way, where she's taken away and becomes when was expecting is just 2 days after the Annunciation. That's in the stars, and that's another story. And when you
based on the distance, I had her journey about 60 to 80 miles, so a 3 to 5 day journey on foot.
Okay, 3 to 5 days. So give her a week or whatever to get there. Well, if you look, I think it's 12 days after, 11 or 12 days after. There is a day that has 4. Now, if you want to look at this is actually in today's article. So if you go down, well, you can look at the thing on the left. I'm pointing my arrow to it. John the Baptist, if you click on the 2.2 link there. Glenn, if you want to click on that, right? Yeah, 2, right, you're close. You're really close. There it is. All right. There it is, John the Baptist. And so I just go through. I'm just going to tell you now, so you say reading it. But there's 4 days that it's wholly on 4 days. And it's just a perfect match because one of them is deer, which has to do with running and jumping in the spirit world. Well, this is the day John jumps as a spirit in this new little body. That's perfect for the day 1 deer. And it's the day 1 prime on both the Mercury calendars, and prime is baptism. So this is John the Baptist, a double Baptist day. But the big one was the 4th one, which is the star calendar. And this can lead to other papers. This, to me, was a huge deal. And it just happened to fit into this paper because I'm doing new things on star calendars as the subject of this new paper. But the 4th one was, there's a constellation that I'm just sure represents John the Baptist in the sky. It's not only one star that represents somebody, a whole constellation can represent the big players. And John the Baptist was as the greatest prophet and heralding Jesus. He's not only got to have a constellation, it's for other reasons, which I can't really publish. I told you I can't publish something till I have something solid. I've never published, but I've been looking for something. So Glenn, I don't mean Glenn, Gary, you asked the question, or whoever asked, was it you, Gary?
Yeah.
Okay, Gary asked, whoever asked the question
Yeah.
led to this answer, and it's what I've been praying to learn. So you ask questions.
Awesome.
I told you all through this, you ask questions and the knowledge, truth comes. The star that's the bright star in the charioteer was the star day of all 364 stars all year. On that day, that's the star. And I submit that's John the Baptist's star and his constellation. That's how it got worthy of putting in this paper. Now, I'm not locked into that. I still need something a little more solid before I publish the rest of what I just told you. But you get the idea how the stars tell stories, and it's pretty exciting. So anyway, that's the answer to that one. So thank you, Gary, for asking, because I told you we both, everybody learns when people ask questions.
And there was like 2 or 3 others that were studying that particular thing at the same time too. It's kind of interesting.
Oh, interesting. And I'm amazed. I've never thought of it before. I only had 3 dates in his life: when he's born, when he died, and when he baptized Jesus. And none of those had anything to do with Capella, that star. And that's one of the brightest stars in the northern skies. It's a star worthy of him. And anyway, it's interesting that others are doing that. So I'm amazed. I can't believe I never even asked the question before, but it's worked out perfect.
So
Get the answer just in time. Go ahead.
Denver talks about in Come Let the Door and how Mary would have been there for the birth. So you would have had Mary, Elizabeth, John the Baptist, and Christ all together at John the Baptist's birth.
Yeah, she might have been there. Luke says something like she stayed there until she was ready to be delivered.
And it was about 3 months, so it could have stretched it a little into October there.
Oh yeah. The 3 months is not what made me say that she left. The fact that he said she left when she was about to deliver suggests that she wasn't there. But as opposed to she stayed when and it just sounds like she left early. I'm just going by the record on that one. But yeah, that would have been cool. Well, they were both there anyway, just before he's born. I mean, Jesus, both the boys are there the whole 3 months.
Yeah.
Actually, it's just, hadn't been born yet. Okay, so that's that question. Now, let's see, that is that one. Oh, as somebody said, what was his question? Gary's question. The question was, have I ever looked at the date of when Mary went to Elizabeth and the baby leapt in her womb for joy at seeing Mary arrive, or even Mary and Jesus arrived. However that worked. And so that was the date we're talking about. And pardon me, I should have repeated that question. Okay, I'll ask for other questions now, but I would like at least 5 minutes to say one thing new that's happened this week. Are there other questions on either what I did or on any tonight or any other subject that I might help know something about? If not, if there is one, I'll go ahead and start my other item. And if there is one, I'll be looking at my chat box to see it pop up. Here's the other item. It's a story similar to the one I told, I think, 2 weeks ago, but I think this is worth knowing because we're all learning how to deal with God ourselves, not going through another man, not following anybody. So 7 days ago, last week, I had this date for John the Baptist that night. Last week, it was, like I said, it was easy. But it became clear it was time to write another paper. And the paper would be this paper. And it would be about how the stars are witnesses of dates. And The last three papers were saying what are all the stars and what order are they in and which are the holy days. So now I had everything ready. And what I envisioned to do this week was just go through my 200 published dates and just sort of skim through it and, pick out some good ones and write a paper. And I had 6 days to do that, which was ample time. But I always pray every day, what should I do today? And the answer was not start the paper. The answer was go to your religious chronology page that has not a computer summary of all 200 dates, but a handwritten summary with notes and references to the links where it's written about in articles. It's a much better, not as complete, but a lot more interesting summary. Is called religious chronology. And originally that's all I ever had until just a few months ago. And it said, these star dates are so important, you need a whole column for the star dates. Until now, I've just had, star dates are in the remarks column, and this star date. And I only knew the most important ones, like, the big bright star dates. So they were okay in a column. It would have been boring to have a whole column for them because most of the stars didn't mean anything. And that's because they were in the wrong order. I didn't know the details of how to order them. I thought I did, but I didn't. And so now when I started to look at the list, it was, oh my goodness, I do need another column. Now all of the dates are on holy days, where they weren't before. And so, and my voice I follow said, start making that column now. Well, that's a lot of work. It's just a lot of work. I have to go to the computer version, look at every star, see what it is. And this is all made by hand with HTML document, that this is not automated. I did that for 1 and then 2 and then 3 days out of the 6 I had to write the article. And I said, hey, I'm getting nervous. I need to start this article. And my voice said, you got plenty of time. Just keep doing it. I did 4 full days, which means up through Thursday night. And I'm cranking away. And this is totally boring. This is the stuff when I took astronomy, I said, I'm sure glad I'm not one of those guys that make lists of stars. What a boring job. And it wasn't. It's boring. And I kept praying. I said, are you sure I'm doing the right thing? There's only 2 days left. Well, at the end of Thursday, I came to the end of Joseph's life, and that is the end of the book of Genesis. And that's the end of the first 1/3 of the history of the world. And when you talk, what Denver would say is that's when all the big patriarchs lived. And after that, you go into darkness, they go into bondage. And then Moses starts to bring them out. But it never gets back to how it used to be, right? We're hoping that now we can be in an age where we'll get back to where those patriarchs were. But their dates were amazing. Well, at the very end of the day, like 10 o'clock Thursday night, I stumble onto this date, and it's the date Isaac died. And and on that day, what happens is he blesses 11, and I can say it quickly. We'll finish in about 1 more minute. Now this is Isaac. I'll remind you first what you already know. You know that his son Jacob blessed all 12 tribes, and it's in Genesis 49. And those blessings, I hope you know that they refer, most of them, to constellations in the zodiac. So, Judah is a lion, and Dan is a serpent, and that's their constellation, stuff like that. That's what you already know. What you don't know, probably, is that Isaac also blessed 11 of the children when he died. Joseph was in prison, and they thought he was dead. And he doesn't get blessed. So they bless 11 of them. Well, that's not even in the Bible. they've lost the blessings. All it says is he lived so many years. And that's it. The book of Jasher adds the detail that on his dying day, he blessed the 11 children, but not Joseph because he's in prison. Thank you. Well, I noted that in an earlier paper about 5 years ago, but I didn't think anything of it. Now, when I see it, now I got to be careful here what I say. Excuse me, let me pause. Every one of these dates has 2 star calendar dates, right? A regular star and a uniform star. Just like I've told you, there's a uniform version of everything. The star date of his death was the day on which Joseph Smith was born. I've noticed that before and thought it was curious, but I never get excited till I see a pattern or more examples. So I noted that in the paper 5 years ago saying, hey, it must be a good day. It's not a big, brilliant star day, but you know, that's cool. But now what you don't know is in the last paper, when I was rearranging the stars, I'm just trying to see if I should say this. I can say it because I plan to publish it in my next paper. When I was rearranging the stars, and Gary will know what I'm talking about. And Gary, don't say much until I do. Oh, is Gary still there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I don't see your, why don't I see? Oh, we got 7 participants. Okay, you got Gary.
I'm having connection issues.
Okay, well, in any case, let's say that in the last week or so, Gary, don't blurt out what I'm not saying, okay?
Okay.
It'll come when it comes, but it's not quite time yet. That's how I feel.
Okay.
I had occasion in the last few weeks, I was rearranging, do a final rearrangement of all the stars, and a certain star date popped up as important in the prophecy of Isaiah and in how the constellation of Virgo looks. And I recognized, because I had just drawn the picture of Virgo and done this research on Isaiah a week before, I recognized the date. And the date has to do with when another prophet is going to come. So scroll down on your page where you are, Glenn, and then we'll stop. You're on my star witnesses. Scroll down to, here it is. You'll see the picture, figure 7. Go back to figure 7. Go up to figure 7. Right there, the tree stump. It has everything to do with this. The prophecy in Isaiah, a shoot will come up from the stump of Jesse and his roots, and from his roots, a branch will bear fruit. I can't believe how much has been written on that. When I wanted a picture, there was no shortage of pictures. And I didn't know that other people understood how it was supposed to look, because I got part of this from Joseph Smith. But this is a perfect picture. It's not the stem of Jesse, it's a stump of Jesse. This is what Isaiah is trying to describe. There was a stump of Jesse that had been cut down, but out of the roots, this branch is growing. Well, this branch is going to be a prophet in the millennium. This is associated, if you scroll down more, let's see, yeah, go down to figure 9. This is associated, which is what I had learned just a week before, with this picture in Virgo. And she's actually holding a branch, and there's a root, and there's a stem, and the stem is actually a branch, and there's a seed. This corresponds to the root of Jesse and the stem, which is called the branch, which is a prophet. The seed is Christ, and that's like the stump. And everybody knows the big seed is Christ. It's the seed of woman. She's like Mary. This is like Christ. Everybody knows about this star. These two stars were only added about a month ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And then only a week ago, I learned that they relate to the prophecy in Isaiah. So to find, here's my final big ta-da-da, drum roll please statement, climax thing is, this says, the what do you call it? The interpretation by Joseph Smith when he prays to the Lord is, what does all this mean? The Lord says that it means that a descendant of Jesse is going to come as a prophet, but he said he'll also be of the house of Joseph. And he'll be a descendant both of Joseph and of Jesse. That's in this paper. And so the point is, it's a descendant, and he says it's of the house of Joseph. So here's my big point that's in this paper. And Gary, there's more to come in the future, okay?
Awesome. This blew me away.
Yeah, I mean, one thing at a time. This is
Yes.
line upon line.
I'll hold my peace.
But the big thing here is this. Joseph was in prison. He wasn't even given a blessing to record if they had recorded it. I mean, I doubt he was. How could he? Why would he have been? The date of the death of Isaac, the fact that he blessed him on his dying day, tells you about two stars. One of those stars prophesies the coming of Joseph Smith, and I say that in this paper. And the other star, who is a descendant of Joseph, and the other star prophesies another prophet who is a descendant of the house of Joseph. That's in that prophecy of Isaiah. So the blessing would have been, Joseph, you're going to have two big prophets come through your line. And that information was hidden in the two star dates. All of that came to me Thursday night, and I ran around screaming, hallelujah. I don't know how long. And the Lord said, see, trust, or the voice said, see, trust me. You were grinding out those dates. It took me 4 days to get up through Joseph. That's how much work it is. I'd only done a third of the way, and I kept complaining to the Lord. I'm only a third of the way done, and it's due in 2 days. You know, and he said, just, you got plenty of time. You're okay. All right. Well, then I knew I had reached it on Thursday night. And so sure enough, I did, and it's a 20-page paper. I was able to crank that out on Friday and Saturday, and it's published today. And that means drawing the pictures. And anyway, I don't know how I got it done that fast. I get help all through this. So there's my story. Trust the Lord, do the hard grinding labor, and just trust him. And boy, does he come through. And
Wow.
so this is to be continued. But isn't that amazing stuff?
It's just being revealed in real time.
Yeah, you're doing. And that picture of that was my post on last night's tutorial, was that picture of the stump of Jesse. And I still have to post tonight's. Oh, we're 5 minutes late. I still got to make a slide tonight to post, and I'll tell you what's going to happen. I'm starting, the slide tonight will be of Joseph Smith, and I'm going to say, by the way, the one prophecy is about Joseph Smith, and probably the next 50 slides are going to be about the restoration and the Joseph Smith. We've done plenty on the Bible. It's time, and I have 250 followers, and they might drop down to 7 or no, 20. I don't know. That's okay. I'm not doing this to get followers. I got to get the information out. But so anyway, because it used to be Christian, and now it's going to be LDS for the next bunch of slides. So I know I'll lose a lot of people, but you know, if one person is baptized to that, that'd be how great would be my joy with them. Okay, I'll let you go. I'm sorry I'm 5 minutes over, but that's worth, I thought that was worth being a little over on. So it's amazing stuff.
Wow.
God is amazing. Isn't this amazing how that much information in the two star dates on a guy's death date? Okay, I'll stop. Thanks for coming, and we'll keep in touch. Till next week.
Wow.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. And hey, and John, you're good next week also, right?
Yeah. So yes, I am not planning to go anywhere for the holidays. Yes.
Okay, fantastic. We'll see you all next week, and we'll put this recording up on Restoration Archives. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye. Merry Christmas.